there's a lot of different weapons, and we touched on it a little bit last week with the quarterbacks preview as we kind of move into the running backs, wide receiver preview of what this team is going to look like. But the depth, I think, is what stands out, especially on the offensive side of you have so many different guys that could play an impact, and it's not a fall off once you get past the first 2 or 3. You look at the running back core, and we've talked about J.D. King looks sleeker. He's obviously, you know what he can do. But you look at guys like Logan Wright. He has, if it was possible to bulk up, he is a bowling ball now.
He's big boy.
Gerald Green, Amari Jones, Jaylen White, who we saw a lot last year, A.J. Brown, Taron Dixon, Jordan Pearson had a touchdown in that scrimmage on Saturday. So many different guys just at the running back spot that you could give the ball to.
All right, now with JD, we know he's still working his way back from the ACL. He didn't play a whole lot during the scrimmage. Now, you see he had a touchdown run, so you assume that things went pretty well. He was only in for a couple of snaps. They're being extremely careful with that knee. By the time we get to September the 4th, he'll continue to get closer and closer to full game mode, and then you would think that a timeshare would exist with Logan Wright as the dive back, but I'm sure there are some instances where you could see both of them on the field at the same time. Now, for the first couple of weeks of camp, what we were largely seeing was that 11 personnel, the one back, one tight, 3 wides. There was a lot more formational flexibility from Coach Roos. We saw a lot of double tight, specifically in red zone, because it gets closer. You want the heavier bodies in there. Remember, towards the tail end of last year, we saw the power eye with Randy Wade and C.J. Wright when you need a 4th and 1. When Logan Wright is the deepest guy and you got those 2 monsters ahead of him, give me the ball. I'm going to get what I need. Jaylen White looked the best of everybody that touched the football, and I'm saying that even though Caleb Hood had a 66-yard touchdown run and a touchdown catch. Amari Jones playing as many as 6 different positions. But as far as getting the ball consistently 4 or 5 yards, leaning forward, and taking multiple guys to bring you down, Jaylen White looked the best. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to get the start against Gardner-Webb. And if you think back to a year ago, in the spring game, or not the spring game, but the first scrimmage, it was Jaylen White that caught everybody's attention with that nearly 70-yard touchdown run that happened right in front of us. Now, ultimately, he didn't get worked into the offense until Army, Georgia State, towards the very end of the season. And those experiences were against 3s and 4s last year. So you wonder, okay, he looked great, but how was it going to look when push came to shove? Saturday, he was doing it against 1s and 2s. You've seen pictures of him helping out with some of the community service activities. He looks yoked. He looks ready to make more of an impact than just getting a couple of carries here and there. I'm not saying he's going to take carries from a JD or a Logan or whomever else is in that backfield with how coach is going to use them, but he appears that if he's needed, Jaylen White's ready.
As we kind of transition more towards the receiver side, got to hit that what I call kind of a hybrid position. It's not a full running back. It's not a full receiver, but what they call the slot receiver. Caleb Hood, Dexter Carter Jr., and those are 2 guys that do that slot really well, but they do it very differently. Dexter Carter more of the receiver side of it, Caleb Hood more of the running back side of it, but Caleb is somebody that we've seen, especially the last couple of practices, has really gotten a lot better with the hands and going out receiving-wise.
A year ago was the catch against Louisiana, the one-handed catch for the touchdown, second game of the season. That was an ESPN top play. He has the 65-yard touchdown catch against Louisiana Tech that I think, in effect, put that game away. I know it was the first play of the second quarter, but after that play, Louisiana Tech was not going to win that game. No. That was Georgia Southern's day. Now he's taking those oh-my moments. That's about every play. He has the chance to take every play and make them that instead of a snapshot where this is possible, that's possible. Now it's becoming the norm. And with the Dexter Carter, receiving-wise, we've been accustomed to him being a possession guy. But you think back to 2017, he ran a kickoff back for a touchdown against New Mexico State right here. And then against App State, final home game a year ago in the fourth quarter, breaks off a 78-yard touchdown reception. Where'd that come from? Broken down coverage in the secondary. He split 3 guys, longest touchdown pass here in 13 years. So to know that you've got that kind of weapon, that kind of untapped potential to catch the football, that's just something else that you can use that as an offense already has a lot of weapons.
And he's one of those guys, too, that you just enjoy being around. We've talked about him a couple of times throughout the podcast, but he is somebody that you genuinely enjoy when you get to have a conversation with Dexter Carter.
Best hair. He won the best hair award
true,
already, so
true.
He's already on the fast track. He's going to be all league this year. You may as well stamp him for it. He's going to be good because of the hair. No, but he's such a good guy because he's had to deal with so many injuries. He's had to deal with so much. It's his 6th year. He opted to take that 6th year. We found out about that before the Louisiana Tech game last year.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something where he had to weigh his decision after a bowl victory. He knew. And now we're getting a chance to see what he can do. It's a little bit of a shift because he's moved inside. For much of his career, he's been an outside guy. But if you could find a way to get him the football, he's got those sure hands. If you need a first down, odds are good he's going to get it for you, but also that game-breaking ability that he's shown us in the past.
So we move on to wide receivers, and this is one that is kind of a question mark. When you go into a preseason, there's always one or two positions that you're like, I'm not exactly sure what you're going to get. Wide receivers is probably one of those for Georgia Southern. You know you have talent there, but it's talent that hasn't necessarily had to prove itself in a game. You've got guys like Najee Thompson and Emil Smith, but outside of that, there's not a whole lot of experience in that wide receiver room, but there is a lot of untapped potential and talent.
The hidden part of what this team lost from a year ago, production-wise, from a receiving yardage standpoint, you lost 4 of your top 7 guys.
Yeah.
Malik Murray transfers to East Tennessee State. Darion Anderson transfers to Tusculum. And those are 2 guys that were here for a long time. Sometimes they were able to do a lot. Other times they go away because guess what? When you run the ball 50, 55 times a game, receivers are blockers. We know that wide blockers is a very common phrase here, not so much other places. And that's where a J.J. McAfee means so much. Big body, a Mark Mashad-style body at 6'3", 220. Somebody you feel for from a health standpoint because he lost his senior season at Ashley Ridge in Charleston because of a torn ACL. He ends up going to Trident Tech in Charleston to get his academics in order, then goes on to Georgia Military where he's a walk-on. And by the time he works himself into a place where he can be in the rotation, COVID comes, no season in 2020. So now Georgia Southern takes a look at his tape from years ago thinking, can we get that now with the weight that he's put on? What can we extrapolate from what we have seen? So far, he's automatically a physical force.
Yeah.
DBs anywhere aren't going to be able to match up with him. He's naturally going to be that possession guy. But I also hooked up with Amari Jones on a beautiful touchdown pass earlier on last week before the scrimmage. You've got Darius Lewis, speedster, who had that 16-yard run against Louisiana Tech. He hasn't done a whole lot in terms of catches because he's been playing behind Caleb Hood. But you move him to the outside with a Najee Thompson. Guys that haven't gotten a whole lot of a chance can now get that chance because of the reps they've been getting in spring, in camp, and eventually when the lights come on, they're going to have to do it for real.
And you've got other names in here, Justin Harris, the redshirt freshman from Peach County, and different guys that have, again, the talent. It's just trying to get that opportunity, and Coach Lunsford talks about it all the time. Next man up. It's not necessarily the same way that you normally see it, but it's kind of a next man up. You throw JT Galloway in there, the transfer in from Savannah State.
Yeah.
It's somebody that has experience, but not at this level.
I will go back to Emil Smith, somebody who started 9 games last year, but because he's not involved from a statistical standpoint, you think that he kind of hides. But it was him and Darion Anderson that were your starting receivers for much of 2020. Jeremy Horton is somebody that performed very well during the scrimmage on Saturday. There are guys that are going to be thrust into different opportunities that are going to be pushed onto the field against Gardner-Webb, and that's not because Gardner-Webb is an FCS school. That is because you need to figure out who the 2-3 guys are going to be on this field. We could look at the depth chart now and say, okay, Najee Thompson is back. Caleb Hood is back. Dexter Carter, Darius Lewis. These guys have been here. J.J. McAfee working his way in. Those are guys that are here. But when it's time to do it, can they do it?
Yeah.
When you get to the do-it time, you might find other guys that are capable, not necessarily the practice players, but that can game, that can make a play when it matters. So there may be an instance where the receiver rotation could go 12 deep. If you're going to go 11 personnel and you need 3 receivers every play, you may see 12 different guys get snaps. And that seems wild when you only suit up a certain number of guys every weekend. But until you find a combination that you like, you could see a lot of guys that maybe you know but not that well, and other guys that you're going to need to look at your roster and figure out, okay, did he change numbers? Do I know him? When he starts making catches, you're going to find out pretty quickly, though.
A lot of new faces that you could see here for 2021 Georgia Southern football, especially on the wide receiver side. But seeing what you were able to see this past Saturday, a lot of brightness ahead for this offense.
This is a home run hitting offense. And a lot of times we associate that with breaking off big chunks with the running game. But if you heard Coach Ruse talking spring ball, if you've heard anybody on that side talk about how they want this offense to be in 21, one, they want to be able to throw it more. Two, Coach Lunsford has said this multiple times. He said this to us in New Orleans at Media Day. He wants this to be an attacking offense.
Yeah.
What that exactly means, it probably has a lot to do with tempo, because numerous times Saturday we saw the quicker tempo. We saw it a couple of times towards the end of last year. And the one stat I'll go back to, the last 2.5 seasons, Georgia Southern's primarily been a team that's run between 62 and 64 plays per game. That's not very many. So the margin for error is pretty small. You go backwards, you need to play catch-up. If you go 3 and out, well, you may not get the ball back until 4 or 5 minutes later. I think you could see this offense run as many as 70 plays per game.
Wow.
Which doesn't seem like a bunch more, 8 to 10 plays more, but if you're in that neighborhood of 6 yards per play, that's 60 extra yards per game. That's probably netting you at least 4 to 5 more points per game, if not a field goal, certainly a touchdown here and there. So when you average that out, a team that scores 27 points per game just in sheer volume may be an offense that can average 32, 34 points per game once we get to 21.